A shooting that killed 2 people and sent 2 others to the hospital has been traced back to a territory beef between 2 rival gangs.
Sunday afternoon, April 27th, 2025. A mechanic shop in Forest Park, Georgia. Between 150 and 200 bikers gathered for what seemed like a regular motorcycle meet. Then gunshots shattered the afternoon calm. Multiple rounds fired. Bikers fled on motorcycles at high speeds. When police finally pushed through the chaos, they found 2 men dead at the scene, 2 others critically wounded. This wasn't a random shooting. This was a calculated attack. One gang targeting another in a territorial war that had been brewing for months. By the time investigators finished their work, they had exposed a deadly rivalry between 2 of the nation's most dangerous outlaw motorcycle gangs. This is the story of what happened when the Outcast motorcycle gang came looking for blood. The shooting. At 4:59 p.m. on April 27, 2025, Forest Park police received multiple calls about shots fired at 5246 Jones Road, a location near Old Dixie Highway and 1st Street. The address was listed as a mechanic's shop, but that Sunday afternoon, it was hosting something very different, a gathering of the Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club. When officers arrived on scene, chaos greeted them. Motorcycles were speeding away in every direction. Riders fled at dangerous speeds, desperate to escape before police could identify them. Officers had to navigate through a large and chaotic crowd, estimated at 100 to 150 people, just to reach the victims. Inside the commercial site, they found a scene of carnage. 2 men lay dead. 2 others had been shot and were in critical condition. Officers immediately began administering life-saving aid before Forest Park Fire and Emergency Services arrived. The 2 deceased victims were identified as Anthony Hearns, 39 years old from Philadelphia, and Isaiah Mack, 25 years old. Both were members of the Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club, a Philadelphia-based outlaw gang attempting to establish a presence in Georgia. The 2 wounded men were rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Investigators would later learn these weren't random victims caught in crossfire. They were the shooters, members of the rival Outcast motorcycle gang, who had come to the gathering specifically to carry out an attack. Forest Park Police Chief Brandon Criss held a press conference the following day, Monday, April 28th. His message was blunt and uncompromising. What happened yesterday is not only tragic, it is an affront to everything we stand for in Forest Park. Those responsible for this senseless violence will be found, prosecuted, and removed from our community. Criss made it clear that Forest Park, a city of approximately 20,000 residents located 12 miles south of Atlanta, would not tolerate this kind of violence. Forest Park is not a playground for lawlessness. If you believe you can bring violence here, know this. We will hunt you down with every legal tool at our disposal, and you will face consequences. The investigation quickly expanded beyond local resources. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives joined the case. The Clayton County Sheriff's Office provided support. Investigators began the painstaking process of interviewing witnesses, analyzing surveillance footage, and tracking down suspects who had fled the scene. During the investigation, authorities discovered another troubling detail. The commercial site where the gathering took place was operating without a proper business license. The city's code enforcement office immediately got involved to ensure the property would not reopen for similar events. The investigation unfolds. For 10 days, investigators worked around the clock to piece together what happened. They reviewed hours of surveillance footage from nearby businesses. They interviewed dozens of witnesses, many of whom were initially reluctant to cooperate. They analyzed ballistic evidence from the crime scene. The break in the case came as investigators identified the 2 wounded men who had been transported to the hospital. These weren't victims, they were the perpetrators. Both men were members of the Outcast motorcycle gang, and their injuries came from return fire during the attack. On May 7, 2025, Forest Park Police held another press conference. They announced charges against 2 suspects, Donald McKnight, known by his gang alias 1HQ, and Nigel Blackwood, nicknamed Railroad. Both men were charged with malice murder and violation of the Georgia Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act. McKnight had already been arrested and was in custody with the Clayton County Sheriff's Office. Blackwood, however, remained at large. Police issued a public appeal for information about his whereabouts. That same evening, in a dramatic turn captured live by Atlanta News First cameras, Blackwood turned himself in to Forest Park police. He was wearing bandages under his shirt and appeared to be in visible pain from his gunshot wounds. Chief Chris explained the motive behind the attack. Investigators believe the shooting stemmed from a dispute over territory. The two groups did not have ties in the area, and they were trying to establish their territory here in Georgia. The Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club, based in Philadelphia, had been attempting to expand into Georgia. The Outcast Motorcycle Gang, which has 4 chapters in Georgia, including one in Atlanta, saw this as an invasion of their territory. The violence at the mechanic's shop was their message: stay out. But the investigation didn't stop with 2 arrests. Police made it clear that more charges were coming. Additional arrests and charges are anticipated as detectives continue to identify other individuals connected to this heinous and senseless act. A police statement read, "In August 2025, authorities charged a 3rd suspect. Marvin Judge was arrested and charged with felony murder and violation of the Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act. Like McKnight and Blackwood, Judge was an alleged member of the Outcast Motorcycle Gang. According to police, all 3 men had entered the Wheels of Soul, gathering together with the specific intent to attack rival gang members. McKnight and Blackwood had carried out the shooting, while Judge had played a supporting role in the assault. The Outcast Motorcycle Gang. To understand why this shooting happened, you need to understand the Outcast Motorcycle Gang. Founded in 1967 in Detroit, Michigan, the Outcast Motorcycle Gang is considered an outlaw motorcycle gang, a one-percenter organization that operates outside the law. The 2nd chapter was formed in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, the gang has 67 chapters across the United States, including 4 in Georgia located in Atlanta, Augusta, Hawkinsville, and Savannah. Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr describes the Outcast Motorcycle Gang as an organization known to engage in a range of criminal activity, including murder, assault, and drug and weapons trafficking. The gang operates with a highly organized hierarchical structure, with national and local chapters led by elected officers such as president and vice president. The Outcast Gang's criminal history in Georgia is extensive and violent. In June 2023, Attorney General Carr announced what was called the largest motorcycle gang indictment in state history. 16 alleged members of the Southeast Georgia chapter of the Outcast Motorcycle Gang were charged with dozens of crimes. The charges stemmed from a June 17, 2022 incident at Flaco's House, Bar, and Grill and the Red Roof Inn on Highway 17 in Richmond Hill, Georgia. Outcast members allegedly surrounded a motel where members of the Chosen Few motorcycle gang had gathered. They tracked and intimidated Chosen Few members for months, confronting them and warning them to stay out of Outcast territory. The situation escalated when Outcast chapter President Milan Do Work Aiken allegedly followed 8 Chosen Few members who stopped at a restaurant. When the Chosen Few members went to the nearby Red Roof Inn, he allegedly called fellow outcasts to encircle the building and hold up the rivals at gunpoint. The outcasts demanded the Chosen Few hand over their motorcycle vests, a humiliating symbol of defeat in gang culture. Gunfire erupted. The investigation, dubbed Operation Patronus, lasted 13 months and involved multiple law enforcement agencies, including the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and numerous local police departments. Authorities executed over 40 search warrants across southeast Georgia, seizing approximately $180,000 in cash and 71 firearms. But the Outcast Gang's criminal enterprise extends beyond territorial violence. In September 2023, Attorney General Carr announced that Jerome McGriff Jr., known as Lil Savage, an alleged member of the Atlanta chapter, had been indicted on charges of trafficking persons for sexual servitude. McGriff allegedly recruited at least 3 women for sexual exploitation and used his status as an enforcer in the gang to threaten victims with violence. The gang profited from the proceeds of this human trafficking operation. In May 2023, the Augusta chapter of the Outcast Gang was involved in a deadly shootout with the Thug Riders motorcycle gang. 2 people died in that incident. 51-year-old Jermaine Farrell from Daytona, Florida, and 30-year-old Keith Coates from Valdosta, Georgia. 4 others survived their injuries. The pattern is clear. The Outcast motorcycle gang is a violent criminal organization that uses intimidation, assault, and murder to maintain control over what they consider their territory. The Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club. The victims in the Forest Park shooting belong to an equally dangerous organization, the Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club. Founded in 1967 in Philadelphia by a man known only as Coffee, the Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club started as a social organization in the early 1970s before evolving into an outlaw gang. The club's mother chapter remains in Philadelphia, but they have expanded to at least 25 states across the United States, plus a chapter in Puerto Rico. The Wheels of Soul claims to be the country's largest mixed-race outlaw motorcycle club, with membership estimated at around 400. Although racially diverse, the membership is predominantly African American. Members wear vests with patches designating rank or status within the club. According to federal prosecutors, members who achieve diamond status and are deemed 1%ers are particularly criminal and violent. Federal officials have deemed the Wheels of Soul a violent gang. The U.S. Department of Justice states that members raise money through robberies and by distributing drugs, especially crack cocaine, but also heroin. Criminal activities include murder, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, racketeering, extortion, and assault. The gang has a long history of violent conflicts with rival organizations. Their enemies include the Outcast Motorcycle Club, Sin City Titans, Hell's Lovers Motorcycle Club, and the Street Soldiers. On November 22, 1979, Wheels of Soul members were involved in a shootout at Woodrow Wilson High School in Camden, New Jersey, against the rival Ghetto Riders gang. The shooting occurred during a high school football game. 19 people were injured. In 2009, after the Philadelphia chapter allegedly declared open season on the Sin City Titans, Wheels of Soul members gunned down a Sin City Titans member in St. Louis, Missouri. In January 2011, at the direction of Colorado, Chapter President Jerry Shaka Elkins, Wheels of Soul members traveled to East St. Louis, Illinois, with the intention of murdering members of the Outcast motorcycle gang. The plot was never carried out due to police presence near the Outcast gathering. Later in 2011, federal agents raided the Wheels of Soul clubhouse in West Philadelphia, following an FBI investigation that began in 2009. The investigation led to 18 members being charged with racketeering and other crimes in the St. Louis area. Prosecutors allege that 6 members conspired to kill members of the rival Outcast MC in January 2011. In 2012, 4 additional members were charged with racketeering after an ATF investigation in Chicago. By the end of 2012, 15 Wheels of Soul members had pleaded guilty in plea deals. The remaining 7 were found guilty after trials in October and November, with juries deliberating for 8 days. On January 29, 2013, 5 Wheels of Soul members entered a cycle gear shop in North Charleston, South Carolina, where 2 Real Kings Motorcycle Club members were making purchases. The Wheels of Soul members told the Real Kings they weren't supposed to be there. A melee erupted into a shootout, leaving the president of the Real Kings MC dead, along with 2 Wheels of Soul members. As recently as July 2025, FBI agents raided 2 Wheels of Soul buildings in West Philadelphia as part of a multi-state operation. The raids were connected to an April 13, 2025 incident at the Babylon Cafe in Woodbridge, Virginia, where a 42-year-old man was forcibly removed from the bar, beaten by gang members, and shot. More than 80 rounds were exchanged in the parking lot. 19 people were arrested or sought in connection with that attack. The Territorial War. The Forest Park shooting wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a broader territorial war between the Outcast motorcycle gang and the Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club. Chief Chris explained the dynamic. They don't want to give up their territory, and that's kind of what led to the altercation. The Outcast gang, with 4 established chapters in Georgia, views the state as their domain. When the Philadelphia-based Wheels of Soul attempted to establish a presence in Georgia, the Outcasts saw it as an invasion. The rivalry between these two gangs goes back years. In 2011, federal prosecutors alleged that Wheels of Soul members conspired to kill Outcast members in Illinois. The 2013 shooting in South Carolina involved a Real Kings member wearing an Outcast support patch, which triggered the Wheels of Soul attack. The pattern repeats across the country. When these two gangs encounter each other, violence follows. The Forest Park shooting fits this established pattern. The Wheels of Soul had organized a gathering, likely to recruit new members and solidify their presence in the Atlanta area. The Outcast gang responded with a targeted attack designed to send a clear message: this territory is claimed. What makes these gang conflicts particularly dangerous is their willingness to engage in violence in public spaces with innocent bystanders present. The Forest Park shooting occurred at a commercial site during daylight hours, with approximately 150 to 200 people present. The Richmond Hill shooting in 2022 happened in a crowded hotel parking lot, surrounded by businesses including a McDonald's and an Arby's. These gangs show a complete disregard for public safety in their pursuit of territorial dominance and gang prestige. The Forest Park shooting exposed the deadly reality of outlaw motorcycle gang warfare in Georgia. Two men, Anthony Hearns and Isaiah Mack, lost their lives not because of anything they personally did, but because they wore the wrong patches in the wrong place at the wrong time. 3 Outcast motorcycle gang members now face murder charges and violations of Georgia's Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act. If convicted, they face life in prison. Police have indicated that additional arrests are expected as the investigation continues. Forest Park. Police Chief Brandon Criss delivered a strong message to anyone considering bringing gang violence to his city. We will not allow criminals to think they have any place in our city. Forest Park is a community built on pride, resilience, and respect. We have no tolerance for reckless behavior that endangers the lives of our residents. Attorney General Chris Carr's Gang Prosecution Unit continues to target outlaw motorcycle gangs across Georgia. Since its formation in July 2022, the unit has indicted 86 alleged gang members across multiple counties. The message from law enforcement is clear: Georgia will not tolerate these criminal organizations. But the violence continues. The Outcast Motorcycle Gang maintains its 4 Georgia chapters. The Wheels of Soul Motorcycle Club, despite the Forest Park deaths, likely hasn't abandoned its plans to establish a presence in Georgia. The territorial disputes that fueled the April 27th shooting remain unresolved. For the families of Anthony Hearns and Isaiah Mack, there is no resolution, only the permanent loss of their loved ones in a senseless gang war. For the residents of Forest Park, there is the unsettling knowledge that their quiet city became a battlefield in a conflict between 2 of the nation's most dangerous outlaw motorcycle gangs. The cases against Donald McKnight, Nigel Blackwood, and Marvin Judge are proceeding through the Georgia court system. All 3 men are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But the evidence police have gathered paints a clear picture of premeditated violence, a calculated attack on a rival gang that left 2 dead and exposed the brutal reality of motorcycle gang warfare in America.